It's Sunday morning, and every decent man and woman is listening to Test Miles with Nick Miles on FM News 101 KXL. Buckle in.
Welcome to Test Miles, FM News 101 KXL. I'm Nick Miles, and today the show coming to you from Italy. That's right, we're on our way to Milan, Italy, and a special guest going to join us throughout the show today is Roman Micah from the Fast Lane Car. Are you enjoying Italy so far?
Well, thank you, Nick. I really am enjoying Italy. I'm really enjoying looking at Italian cars in Italy. Sort of the right car in the right place.
Yeah, that's right. We're actually on the bus this morning going to an expo center, and one of the things that Alfa Romeo did was invite us to Italy to have a look at a new vehicle they're going to unveil later today, which we'll have on the show. But as part of the day, to keep us busy, they're sending us to a food expo. So we're on a coach heading to the expo center in Milan. All the documents we've been given are actually in Italian. So where are we going, Roman?
We are going to the Expo Milano 2015, and I think these shows happen, it's like the World's Fair used to be. These are now the New Age World's Fair, and so this one is all about food.
So there's a little mascot on our ticket of his name is Foodie, and his head is a watermelon, and his mouth is a banana. What are the eyes, like eggs?
Yeah,
blueberries?
Eyes are eggs, and the eyeballs are actually, I'm going to say olives. I'm going with olives.
I would have said blueberries, but all right.
All right, either way.
So yeah, this is they've given us a documentation and a map, and it appears from where we're heading is this is like a food expo with every different country.
Yeah, we've got all of the world represented here, and the theme for this year's show is feeding the planet and energy for life. And I could try that in Italian. Why don't you try that in Italian?
Biglito ingresso.
No, that's entrance ticket.
I didn't notice
Very
the
good.
English underneath there, but
Yeah.
clearly it was written in English. So, one of the things, let's talk about cars of Italy. The most famous, of course, Italian car company is Fiat. The other brands tend to be owned by Fiat. We saw a 500 on the road a little while ago. A very natural car for this part of the world.
Yeah, the roads are really small. It just feels like it belongs here. When you see a Fiat 500 like on an American freeway or expressway, it seems like a tiny little car that's kind of like a fish out of water. But here, it just naturally fits. It's really cool to see that you think of Italian cars and you think of sexy Alfa Romeos and you think of Ferraris, right? These are the classic Italian cars that come to mind, Maserati, Lamborghini. And in fact, what you end up with are these little tiny, tiny cars from an American standpoint, like the 500, like the Skodas, and
Little Renaults, little Citroens.
Yeah, you realize that most Italians aren't driving Lamborghinis and driving around smoking red hot models, which is kind of my impression of Italy, especially Milan.
Right. We're actually at the hotel, which is about an hour's ride from downtown Milan. So we'll get to see that sometime later in the show as we go to the reveal of this new Alfa Romeo. Now, Alfa are coming back to the United States in a big way.
Yeah, they're back with the Alfa Romeo 4C, which is sort of, I'd call it a vanity car. It's a small car, kind of in the vein of a Lotus, right, where it's all about performance. It would be a great, let's say, fifth car to own. Beautiful car, sounds beautiful, sexy to look at, sexy to drive, but certainly nothing you'd want to drive across country in. And that's not how you build a brand. Or return a brand to a country, because it's a car that has limited appeal. So now they're coming back, which hopefully we'll see tonight, 3 Series fighter, a car that kind of goes up against the C-Class or the Audi A4, and that's what we're hopefully going to see. And we think it's going to be called the Giulia. We're not sure, but that's the rumor.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of photographs, renderings of this car that could be coming back tonight. We'll have a better idea for you later on in the show. One of the things about, I guess, Alfa Romeo is they were in the United States up until about the 90s. They had some pretty poor cars. They're not necessarily known as a high-end luxury brand, but they're trying to change that image, aren't they?
Yeah, especially under Fiat ownership. And of course, in a way that's ironic, because Fiat for a lot of people still stands for Fix It Again, Tony. And of course, Fiat is, in this case, FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, the rebranded, renamed Chrysler company is trying to change that image. And I think bringing back Alfa Romeo is part of a long-term strategy to reintroduce America to Italian cars that aren't necessarily the most exotic, right? When you think of Italian cars in America, you think of Maserati, Lamborghini, Ferrari, but there's a whole line of cars that are affordable and you can actually sell a lot of, which means you can make a lot of money.
Right. And that's the idea is, I think people in the United States are a little bit bored with Audi, Mercedes and BMW. Lexus didn't really fill the slot. It was more of a reliable car than a passionate car. The same with Infiniti and Acura, so much that they were very reliable cars, and they sort of went into this luxury theater. And although they all the boxes are ticked, they didn't quite get the heart racing as much as the German cars did. And I think that's probably the idea of Alfa Romeo is they want to do something luxury, but they need the heart race, and there isn't anything as a competitor to the Germans, right?
Yeah, and here's kind of the key, I think, to this introduction. Sergio Marconi, Marconi, I always get that wrong. Marchioni, thank you very much. The CEO of FCA was quoted as saying that an Alfa Romeo needs to be three things, right? It needs to be, number one, a rear-wheel drive. Number two, it needs to be built in Italy. And number three, it needs to be sexy. And hopefully he's checked off all those boxes with this new Giulia. And that's the kind of the secret sauce in Alfa Romeo. Not just the fact that it's built in Italy, that it's rear-wheel drive, but that it kind of brings that wow factor, right? It's something that when you drive to work and you park it, you turn around, look at it, and you go, wow, that's my car.
See, one of the things that I think about often is when you think about built in Italy, you think craftsmanship, but a lot of time too, the craftsmanship, of the Italians is more in the design level. When a lot of car companies are moving their plants to the United States, do you think the built in Italy is going to be a big selling point for them?
I think it kind of taps into that mystique of the Italian brand, right? It's always more mysterious to have a car built in some exotic sounding location than it is to have it built in Ohio. So if that sells more cars, more power to them.
Right. We'll probably be looking at this car coming early next year. What do we know about it so far? Well, we know Roman's already mentioned that it's going to be a BMW 3 Series fighter. That's what they're bringing it to market. It'll be a 4-door luxury sedan. There'll probably be some high design of the vehicle, high-end interior styling, and price point. We probably think it'll start somewhere in the high 30s, mid to high 30s, and probably go clear up to around 60,000.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. The other rumors, and these are just rumors at this point, we'll have to obviously check them out when the car is actually unveiled, is that there will be two engine choices. There'll be a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and 4 cylinders is really what Alfa's known for. So throughout history, 4 cylinders have been kind of the calling card of any great Alfa Romeo. And so they're looking at a 4-cylinder that's probably going to be turbocharged and put out just under 300 horsepower. Rear-wheel drive, and there will be apparently an all-wheel drive variant, and there'll also be a 6-cylinder. And the rumor is that that'll be close to 500 horsepower. So we're going to have two models, and like you said, probably the 4-cylinders start in the high 30s, and then God knows where the big 6-cylinder will end up.
And especially with the thirst of 4 cylinders now, this market could not be better primed for Alfa Romeo to come back, because everybody is going to 4-cylinder turbocharged. Even Volvo now only going to have 4 cylinders in their vehicles. So primed for the market. We'll find out later in the show, but let us get to the Expo Center. We're going to have a quick look around, and then we're going to see if we can perhaps enjoy some. We're going to try. One of our desperations in this part of the show is been trying to find something car related. We're on this Alfa Romeo trip. They're taking us to a food expo, and we're trying to go, well, maybe we can find drive-in food, or see if we can find something car related. So that's going to be our quest. See how we can turn this food expo into a car related segment. Of course, you're listening to Test Miles and FM News 101 KXL. Coming up, we will have the reveal of that brand new Alfa Romeo to the world, which will be coming to the United States, and hopefully we'll be bringing the Italians back to the everyday middle class driver of the US. I'm Nick Miles. Well, welcome back to Test Miles. We are in Milan today. Nick Miles with Roman Micah, and we are preparing to have the unveiling of the brand new Alfa Romeo Giulia, which will happen a bit later in the show. Alfa Romeo coming back to the United States in a big way. We're actually at the Milan Expo 2015, which is an eco-food expo. And we've had lunch already, haven't we, Roman?
We had our favorite lunch, Belgian French fries. Now that was a proper, Belgium lunch.
A proper Belgian lunch. And you had a choice of sauces, probably like 10 different sauces. I chose
the spicy sauce.
A spicy one, which I regret slightly, and I will do regret later, I'm sure. Well, what did you choose?
Well, I chose the proper sauce to go with Belgium fries, which is mayonnaise, of course.
Excellent. Now, there's a couple of interesting things. So we're here, it's obviously Test Miles is a car show, so we're in search of finding cars, and we have discovered several cars, haven't we?
Yeah, the most interesting, of course, are the police cars that are roaming around here. The Polizia. Is it Polizia? Is that how you say it in Italian? They're
Carbonari.
Carbonari, yeah.
Isn't that spaghetti?
I think that's spaghetti. The all-electric i3, but the more interesting was the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, right?
Absolutely. I didn't realize that i-MiEVs were being used by a police force. Now, this being an ecological display, of course, they have ecological cars. However, I could probably outrun that i-MiEV, which... And if your chase takes more than anything more than 83 miles, they're probably out of luck.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can get an extension cord.
Yes, and then, of course, I could probably outrun that as well. Very interesting that they're using these two vehicles, electric vehicles, as their police cars. And I wonder, one of the things that comes to mind is, when you have an electric vehicle, the more... things like the radio and air conditioning you have on, the more the power wears down. So if you put the lights and siren on, how does that wear the power down?
I don't know. I think that becomes a very short chase indeed. And God help us, dude, if the future of sustainable law enforcement are i-MiEVs and BMW i3s, because, tire squealing cop chases are the staple of American police force.
Absolutely. It's never going to happen in the USA. The other thing about them is, the last time I checked, although the i3 does have an extended battery where you can have the gas engine, but the last time I checked, they were close to $50,000.
Yeah, it's not an inexpensive vehicle at all. And let's face it, dude, if you're driving down the highway and you're a bad boy and you've just robbed a bank, right, and you see a Charger behind you with that bull bar, and you know that thing's going to hem you under the hood, right, you're going to be a little concerned. If, on the other hand, you just knocked over the local bank and you've got an i-MiEV chasing you, come on, dude.
I know. It's not threatening at all. You'd probably try and get away with it. Interesting, though, the police force using it. The other vehicle we found, the third one, was we found a Fiat 500. But that wasn't drivable, was it?
No. They have trees growing out of it. Is it a car tree or a tree car?
Yes. We're very confused about it. They seem to use these Fiat 500s and plant trees in the middle of them, although they're a lot more common here. I've never seen trees being grown out of Fiat 500s before. And I do lie a little bit, because we did find another car, but we're not quite sure what it was, whether it was a car or not. There's pavilions from every different country here, from Peru, from Czechoslovakia, from Belgium, from England, and outside the Czech Republic
was a fountain.
Was that? Yeah. What was it?
I don't know. It was I'm Czech, Nick, and so I have a fondness for the Czech culture. But sometimes the Czechs go really off the deep end into some really kind of strange artsy stuff, and that was it. It was like half bird, half car. What did you call it?
I called it a bra. It was like a bird car. It was one side was a bird, one side was a car, and then it had water coming out of the wing.
Yeah, there was a fountain coming out of it. And the reason we went to, let's be honest, the Czech Republic display was because the Czechs make some of the best beer in the world. And we were trying to figure out how this car bra thing was inspired by beer, and I think you figured it out.
Yeah, we think that the person who had designed this particular display had clearly consumed large amounts of beer before designing it.
But you know what? That's a really good question. What will police cars of the future look like? I mean, will they be Teslas? Will they be some kind of funky hybrids, right? Like a Prius police car? I just can't see it. To me, a police car should be fast and furious and serious and not electric.
Now, when we still have V8 Hellcats and high-powered Chevy engines, you're still going to need police cars that can pursue people with those vehicles. So clearly, in this modern age, electric cars will not cut the mustard. However, let's talk about what happens in the future when you have self-driving cars. Does that mean the police car, you can tag this car on a computer screen in front of you, and the police car just keeps up with it?
You know, I think, if I'm being serious, I think when that happens, the police will just have a little switch and turn your car off. That'll be the sad day, but that's what's going to happen. And let's face it, sure, we're making fun of the iMeave and the i3 as police cars, but if you're in an urban situation like Milan, right, where it's an old city and the streets are tiny and tight, electric police cars make a lot of sense.
Absolutely, as long as you don't have to go long distances. But of course, you know, America is this giant land of 350 million people that takes as long to cross from one side of America to the other as it does to fly from New York to London. So at that same time, we're all about distance and land in America. Electric cars clearly aren't for us.
Yeah, I agree, and I love your idea of a police Hellcat. Now that is one badass police car. If I see that thing in my rearview mirror, I'm not only pulling over, I am cuffing myself.
I wonder if we could go to Fiat Chrysler and say, give us a Dodge Hellcat and we'll make it into a police car. Do you think they do that?
You know, I'm sure somebody in the Arab Emirates has already done that. Because those guys love their Lamborghini police cars, their Bentley police cars, and it makes perfect sense to have a Hellcat police car.
Absolutely, and of course you would have no problem whatsoever in pursuing down your enemies and capturing them as well. So here we are in Milan. We're at the Expo Center 2015 Eco Expo Center. Lots of Italians running around trying food from every different country. The police, the locals of Milan coming out to enjoy it. Oh look, we found another vehicle. There's another use for a Sprinter van. We just come across a Guardia di Finanza, which is an Italian police truck, but it's a paddy wagon. They're using a Sprinter van as a paddy wagon here. And do you notice it has wire mesh over all the windows?
I did, and you know what? If you look at the actual Carbonari, I think they're called, you know, they may not be the most scary or most authoritative police force, but they are some good-looking police officers here, I'll tell you.
They absolutely are. Italians are probably the best-looking race in the world, and they're all svelte. I don't think they've ever visited a donut shop. When we return on Test Miles, we're getting closer to the unveiling of the brand new Alfa Romeo Giulia coming to the United States soon. I'm Nick Miles. Welcome back to Test Miles on FM News 101 KXL. I'm Nick Miles, and that is the sound of Andrea Bocelli, the Italian opera singer. Roman, you've just seen the Alfa Romeo Giulia unveiled to the world for the first time. What are your first thoughts?
You know, Nick, I've been to a lot of car reveals at a lot of different auto shows around the world, and by far, that was the most dramatic, over-the-top, exuberant, and I think well thought out reveal I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen so much production quality go into the video behind the car, right? And the actual reveal was way over the top. Really cool. Really enjoyed that.
Right. So let me explain to everybody who only heard a little bit of Andrea Bocelli singing. But so he sang Nessun Dorma. The car came out. At that point, there was lots of speeches. He read some poetry. The car came out, and then all of the guys, what they call the skunks, from Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. I think they could have chosen a better name, but these are the guys that have spent the last 2 years designing, refining, and creating. And Alfa Romeo want us to know that this car was created and not made, creating the new Giulia. They seem to be a little bit excited about this new car.
Yeah, you know, they took a page out of the Skunk Works, which was, of course, an American thing, and they call the guys working on the design and, of course, the engineers putting the car together skunks. And I think in Italian, it's one of those lost in translations moments, because an American calling a team of guys and gals engineers skunks is probably much more cute and romantic than when you hear it in English.
Right, and I want immediately, my brain being the sort of the old morning show radio guy goes, the car stinks because the skunks made it, you know, but it clearly doesn't, and it's beautiful, right?
Yeah, you know, oh my gosh. So there was a lot of beautiful design that went into the car. And let's face it, Italian cars are all about design and less about substance. And sorry about that background noise. We're at dinner trying to record this after the after the reveal of this car, but it's really all about the style of the thing, right? The emotions that evokes. And when I was talking about the fact that they had a video going behind the car, I think they spent more time on that video than they may have actually on the design of the car. It was fascinating to watch. Like, for instance, when we were talking about the fact that this is a rear-wheel drive car, right? They showed the guy in leotards, obviously a ballet dancer, right, with his feet planted firmly on the ground, right? And then they said, it's not like it's a front-wheel drive car. And then they showed the guy leaning over and putting his hands on the ground.
Right. We're actually a little more discombobulated from this because we watched it happen, and then we had listening to the Italian, everybody speaking in Italian, and we had headphones on, so we're listening to the English translation, which was like some 80-year-old lady who was telling us what was going on. And now the president, Sergio Marchioni, says, you know, it was very sort of discombobulated for us.
All right, can I get real for a second?
Yeah.
Let's get real. Okay, we just sat through an hour worth of self-congratulatory speeches, right?
Right.
And we basically got two numbers out of the whole thing, right?
Right.
One number was 510. Can you guess what that is, guys?
That's clearly the horsepower.
That's right, the horsepower. And I think the other number, if I don't mess this up, was 4.2, which was 0 to 60 time of the car.
Right. So
it was 3.9. Anyway, it was either one of those.
What we learned about the vehicle is this is going to be an all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive sports sedan. It's going to take on the BMW M3, probably M4. It's going to have a turbo. Now, there was no mention of twin turbo, twin scrolling turbo, or single turbo. We just understood it's going to have a turbo. We understood that turbo is going to have zero lag, which would normally suggest to us that it would have a twin turbo, but at this point, that's not been made clear.
We don't even know how many liters the engine's going to be.
Right.
Right.
So it's almost like we've decoded half of the information, but the important half of the information is still eludes us. What else did we learn about the vehicle? We know that Ferrari had a major hand in making the engine or designing the engine, but it's not clear who's going to make the engine. It's not clear if the car's going to be made by anyone else or there's old parts in it. It seems like they're suggesting it's completely new.
Yeah, I mean, they've managed to say nothing but do it in style over an hour, right? So we learned that there's going to be carbon fiber in the vehicle. There's a lot of aluminum, so weight saving, obviously. And I love that video when they were talking about the driver-car interface, right? That how it connects directly to your brain. And then there's this guy in leotards where there's like streams of power coming out of his fingertips because that's him connecting with the car. But in terms of like any real numbers or any real facts, let's face it, this car, in order to compete in Europe, is going to have at least one, if not two, diesel options, right? Because that's what that segment calls for. It's going to have an entry-level version, which means a four-cylinder. They didn't talk about that. And what we did see was a top-of-the-line, balls out, you know, really expensive.
Full on, basically the top of the line car. So it would be the M version of a 3 Series. It had body cladding, it had all the bells and whistles, it had front
brakes, the whole
great
thing.
Big sort of Brembo style brakes. It had front air intakes and specially tuned exhaust. We heard that was coming, but we didn't
hear the exhaust.
Yes, that's right. The sound of the vehicle, outstanding. But again, we don't know if this is going to come in a base vehicle. We don't know. The price is being suggested around $60,000, but that's all speculation.
Yeah, there's really nothing that we can tell you that you can sink your teeth into, except for the fact that it's sexy, which we knew was going to be. It's rear-wheel drive, but I've got a little bit of a tidbit I found that they didn't announce that I'm going to share with our audience, and that is I was walking around. So they had one car that they unveiled, and then they had two cars that they had kind of in the foyer of the building. And guess what one of those cars was, Nick?
Tell me.
It was a manual transmission.
So clearly we'll have a manual transmission in the new Alfa Romeo Giulia.
Yes, I can share that with you. You guys are one of the first to know, but there was a car that was on display with a manual transmission. It was locked. I couldn't see how many gears. I'm guessing it looked like 6, but it could be 8. Who knows? But there was definitely a manual transmission mule that was sitting there looking like it was ready for production.
Now, we did ask the Alfa Romeo American guys some questions, and we said to them, when will this car be coming to the United States? And the answer was, the Italians have planned for first quarter, but being that the Italians have planned, we would suggest you maybe hold until second quarter 2016.
Yeah, there's that saying that the Italians are the most organized in the last 5 minutes, and I think that certainly holds true with the engineers at Alfa Romeo.
Right, I would share one of the most delightful portions of our trip is that we stayed at this hotel near the airport, and they had a giant, would almost look like something you'd have at a meeting, a white pad that they were writing information on for us, and they had times the buses would leave for the presentation, and there was 9 different times crossed out with times written on there. So it started at 2:30, then 2:40, then 2:45, then 2:50, then 3 o'clock, and so the Italians clearly updating themselves because they couldn't get organized.
Yeah, it was the most disorganized, organized, and of course dramatic launch. But the car itself is, sexy. I mean, it competes with obviously the other luxury cars in the segment, the 3 Series, the A4, and I think, in my opinion, it's certainly much better looking than all those cars. Whether it drives as well as it looks, we don't know.
The other bits of information we did learn is that this was the first of 8 cars to come over the next 3 years. One of those may be a Fiat. They haven't decided whether it's going to be an Alfa Romeo and a Fiat. So 7 or 8 cars which will arrive in the United States or the rest of the world in the next 3 years. We also learned that in the United States there are approximately 142 dealers that have been assigned. Although we've asked for information about those dealers and they don't have a list.
So obviously the CEO of FCA now, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, is Sergio Marchionne, yeah. And I recall a quote by him when he bought, or when he basically put that company together. He said there were 3 brands that he considered world brands. And can you guess what those 3 brands are?
Well, I think Jeep was one of them.
Very good, Jeep's one. Okay, so you got one. What's 2?
Fiat. Ferrari.
Yes, Ferrari. And the third one was Alfa Romeo. So I think to the CEO's way of thinking, Alfa Romeo is an integral part. It's an important part of the entire new FCA corporation. So I think they're going to spend a lot of time, effort, and money making sure that they have a successful car launch. And let's face it, the 4C is a beautiful car, but you can't build a company on a 2-door Lotus-like car in America. You need a serious sedan to start selling serious amounts of cars.
Now, the impression is that Alfa Romeo are getting serious. We've seen that with the new Giulia. All right, you're listening to Test Miles and FM News 101 KXL. When we return, we're not going to be in Italy. That's all I'm going to tell you for now. Welcome back to Test Miles, the final segment of our show today, and we have been in Italy for the first 3 segments in Milan, talking about the brand new Alfa Romeo Giulia, and now Roman is still with us, but we have used the power of airlines to come all the way back to the west coast of the United States. We're actually in San Francisco, and on the last part of the show, we thought we would give you a little taste of 2 new entry-level vehicles that are coming to the United States at the beginning of September this year, and we've been privileged enough to be invited by Scion to drive their IM and their IA. And we are, at present, driving on a freeway in San Francisco, testing out the new IM. Roman's in the driver's seat. I haven't driven yet. How is it so far?
I can tell you it's no Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, I think the Alfa Romeo has about 400 and something horsepower more than this.
Yeah, this one has 136, if I recall from the product presentation, and it's a fine car. You know, it's the kind of car that if you're looking for something for your college grad, or you're looking for a first car, this is the kind of car that I think people would appreciate, because it's got a hatchback, so it's very roomy. Unfortunately for Scion, you know, they haven't had many new products for the last 2 years, so all of a sudden they came out of nowhere with 2 brand new cars, and it'll be interesting to see what people think or remember of Scion. And of course, Scion is known for having that kind of funky, unusual business model where you don't haggle over the price, right?
Right.
They set the price, and the nice thing about this IM as well as the IA is that there are really no options to choose from. Just the color of the car. That's it.
And the transmission.
And the transmission, yeah. So this one has a 6-speed manual. There's also a CVT, but I kind of cringed when I said that.
They call it a CVT SI, a sports something, right?
Yeah, they always do that, because basically they're trying to make it seem like it's a sporty car. And let's face it, sportiness is something, and fun to drive is something that the car makers have now clung on to. Every car that we go test drive is fun to drive.
Exactly. So here's a couple of interesting things about Scion. Let's look at the lineup. They originally came to the United States exactly 12 years ago. Their idea was Toyota's audience were getting older, and they wanted an entry-level brand for Toyota, which is why Scion was born. Scion originally, I think, came with the idea that they were going to get this XY generation, but ended up with a lot of customers over the age of 50, which was shocking to them. But now they're really trying to young up their vehicles, make them very economical. So the IQ, which was their small little car, is going away. The XB is no longer going to be in production at the end of this year. And this new IM will be replacing, I guess it's not really replacing anything, it's built on the same platform as the TC. And they're saying 50% of people who will buy this IM, and I think the numbers they're looking for is the segment is going to have 500,000 people in this entry-level small subcompact segment, but 50% of the people that buy this vehicle will be new car buyers for the first time. And a percentage of those people would have had a second-hand car, but 50% of the people getting into this IM will never have owned a new car in their life. And so they're trying to make that new car experience great. Now, the options on the car, apart from color and transmission from the factory, are really aftermarket options. They have some very basic, standard options. The safety options were quite impressive on the vehicle.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, you know, it's impossible to bottle cool, right? Which is what Scion tried to do, because the second you identify something as being cool, it is no longer cool. So what shocked Scion was that a lot of their cars that they were selling were being bought by, you know, people that were close to retirement age, because they offered a lot of value, a lot of fuel efficiency, and a lot of reliability. I think youngsters care about this, but the old people certainly cared about it a lot more. And yeah, so now they're trying to youth up their brand again. And at the end of the day, look, if I'm trying to buy a car for my son who is now going into college, right, what I want is a car that is first and foremost safe, and secondly will start and run every time he goes and starts it up. And that's what Scion is offering for the younger generation. They're also making it fuel efficient. I forget the numbers, but it's certainly top of its class. And they're adding a little bit of, you know, a dash of style. This car has that kind of New York, Tokyo chic styling. If you've ever watched the video game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But underneath, it's, you know, it's a Toyota.
And you know, like, dads are going to be happy and mums are going to be happy to put their kids in this car, because technically it's a Toyota. And I think the whole idea is that if we can get people to buy the second car after this as being a Toyota, or stay on the Scion brand, the idea is to bring them into the brand for good. Well, you've been listening to TestMiles and FM News 101, the first part of the show from Italy, the second part of the show from San Francisco. We're on our way back to Portland. I'd like to thank Roman Micah for being our co-host throughout the show today. Roman, how can people find you?
Yeah, if you guys are interested in actually seeing what these cars look like, go to tflcar.com, thefastlanecar.com, and we'll have complete video reviews of these vehicles, and you can actually see what we're talking about, because it's hard to describe sitting behind the steering wheel in San Francisco traffic.
Although it's fun, watching them on TV can also sometimes be funner. Don't forget to go to testmiles.com to find out the latest shows. We're there 24/7, 365 days a year. And you can also catch up with what we've been doing around the world. Thanks for listening. I'm Nick Miles.